I don't know. I also hate when people argue on our posts about the questions. I just ask
Oh,
your questions, stop arguing on
yeah,
it.
they start like the sub thread.
Yeah.
I try so hard not to just jump back into those two, but I'm like, oh, we'll just save it for
I know, me too, because I'm like, we have to discuss it on the podcast, so I'm not supposed to answer now, but like I want to answer. So,
Right.
Oh, shit. It happens almost every time. Oh, yeah. You got into a fight with that guy a while ago, so you didn't see that question. So that's a question, too. He got you blocked.
Why is Seattle secondary still slowing down halfway through games? I don't have an answer for that. Why is Seattle secondary still slowing down?
It means, like, why?
They're tired.
I think it means, like, why they're playing prevent defense. Do you do that?
Yeah. Eagles do it and then gives up fucking first downs like crazy. Stupid. They'll be like 3rd and 20, and they'll be like, okay, well, we're going to give you 20 yards on check down.
For sure.
It happened against the Bengals. I was pissed. Sheldon, get out of there.
Yo, I accidentally clicked something on the settings so you make sure we're actually live and, like, people can see it publicly.
Oh, we got one
Okay.
like.
Alright, so we are. We're good. Okay. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Alright, welcome to Talkers Chief. I'm your host, Zach Cooper. This is your co-host, Brent Johansson. And we're going to break down all the questions you guys asked and go through our Week 3 predictions. So, we'll start out with the first question. Zach Calhoun wants to know who is going to play the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I'll start out here. I'm not exactly sure the Seahawks will make it to the Super Bowl, but if I had to make a prediction right now, they would be my NFC pick just based off the first 3 weeks. It's got to be either them or Green Bay. I would say I'd give the edge to Seattle because Russell Wilson's playing out of his mind. He's on pace for like 80-some touchdowns this year, and that, I mean, I don't think that's going to hold up, but as of right now, that's all I have to go off of, and that's incredible. So he'd walk away with the touchdown record by over 20 at this point. So I do think that they have some weaknesses on their defense a little bit, and they need to stop letting teams keep up with them. I think a lot of that's due to them getting a big lead early in the game and they kind of just let off. I think they need to stop doing that. We'll have a question about that later, so we'll get more into that later. But in the AFC, I think right now it's got to be the Chiefs. I think until someone can prove that they can beat them. I know there are other AFC teams playing extremely well, but until somebody can go beat the Chiefs and prove to me that Patrick Mahomes isn't going to repeat, that's who I got for the AFC at this moment.
Yeah, so the obvious pick is Kansas City, right? They're unstoppable. Mahomes is having a great season, just like always. That would be too easy to say Kansas City, though. So my bold prediction, Cam Newton and the Patriots versus Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. They already had a great showdown week 2.
They did.
Have a great rematch in the Super Bowl. That's Patriots.
Yeah, that's a good answer there. I like that. Was Monday night game more so about the Ravens' struggles or the brilliance of Kansas City and their coaching staff?
I'd have to give it to Andy Reid. Andy Reid figured out how to take away Baltimore's best weapon. That was Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson did not look good in that game. He had less than 100 yards passing. He did excel on the ground, but you're going to expect that out of Lamar Jackson. But Kansas City did something that really no other team besides the Tennessee Titans have ever done, and that's expose Lamar Jackson. And when you play coverage and make him play quarterback, you're going to beat Lamar Jackson, and that's what Kansas City did. So have to definitely give hat off to Kansas City's coaching staff because they completely took Lamar out of that game.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say it's probably. I'm gonna say it's a little bit of both. Because as he said, Andy Reid did. He exposed Lamar. He made him try to throw the football, and that also plays into Baltimore's struggles. Okay, when Lamar's got to be a pocket passer, he's nothing more than average at best on a good day. Okay, and I'm not trying to be the guy that's going to be like a Lamar hater. I got no problem with the kid. I think he's a great player. But the simple fact is he's not a great pocket passer. And most mobile, super mobile QBs aren't. And so that's how you beat the Ravens. More teams need to try to do it. I know it's easier said than done. You're not going to be able to do it all the time. But those are the Ravens' struggles. And when a team can do that, they tend to not play well against those teams. Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. Obviously, you always want to credit Andy Reid's coaching ability because Andy Reid's one of the best coaches to ever do it. And I think it was crap. He always got shit before he won the Super Bowl about not being able to get it done because I think he did everything in his power to be able to get it done. So, yeah, I'm going to have to say it's a little bit of both on there, and I look forward to maybe seeing them play again in the future, maybe in January. So we'll see. Are the Vikings the worst team in their conference? No. No. You're talking about a conference that has Washington and the Giants in the same conference. And, I mean, come on now. I know they're 0-3, but they looked good last week. They lost a game where both teams played really well. And they obviously, on paper, if you looked at their team on paper, there's a lot of teams that are worse than them in the NFC. You also have Atlanta, who just finds ways to lose games. So I think they play to lose instead of playing to win. That's kind of what it looks like for Atlanta. So if there were fourth quarter meltdown statistics, Atlanta would be number one. That's a. I don't know if you meant division. Maybe you meant division. At this point, technically they're the worst team in the division, but I think they're better than Chicago and Detroit. But I can't sit out here and try to say that because you don't play the game on paper. So they got to come out and prove it. So right now, yes, they're the worst team in the NFC North until proven otherwise. But are they the worst team in the conference? Not by a long shot. There's plenty of other 0-3 teams worse than the Vikings. So.
Yeah, even though the Vikings start off to like a really bad start, 0-3. I don't even have them as the worst team in their division. That's Detroit for me. I think on paper Detroit falls far behind Minnesota. But the Giants are terrible. And then without Saquon, that team is hardly even a football franchise. I didn't include Washington on that list because they have a lot of pieces. They're heading the right direction. But Minnesota, no, not the worst team in the NFC.
Which team has been more impressive up to this point, Green Bay or Seattle?
So I'm going with the Green Bay Packers, and this is my reason. And it's not a knock on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, but the Seahawks are playing close games and pulling it out at the end, where minus this last game without Devonta Adams, Green Bay has just been completely embarrassing their opponents. Granted, the Seahawks have been playing a little bit tougher opponents than what Green Bay's been playing, but Aaron Rodgers literally looks like he's 26 again. He's just lighting it up. He does not look like a regressing quarterback by any means. Green Bay is a very, very scary team. They're probably going to run away with that division. I can't say that Russell Wilson and the Seahawks are going to run away with that division. So, Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say the same thing. As a Vikings fan, it pains me to say that. But it's not because I think Green Bay is the better team. But have they been more impressive? Yeah, because I kind of expected the Seahawks to be really good, where Green Bay had a lot of question marks. So they've impressed me more because they far over and achieved what I thought they were going to achieve up to this far in the season. Because through 3 games, I had Green Bay at 1-2. And them losing to New Orleans and Minnesota to start the season. So the fact they're 3-0 is shocking, where I had Seattle 3-0. I mean, I didn't have Russell Wilson playing as well as he was doing right now, but I did have them 3-0. So they're right on par with my expectations, and Green Bay has far and exceeded that. Aaron Rodgers is playing lights out, and a lot of people, especially after last year, did not think that was going to be a thing. Aaron Rodgers showed what looked like to be signs of regression, and I don't know if he would have played that way if Green Bay didn't draft Jordan Love, but I think that lit a fire under Aaron Rodgers, and he's playing pissed off. And I've seen pissed off Aaron Rodgers before, and that's not a guy you want to play against. So it's good to see him not just checking down every pass this year, because that was really annoying to watch last year. And so they really impressed me a lot.
I hate Rodgers, but he's playing some of the best ball he's played in a long time.
Yeah,
I agree with that, Roland.
Yes, and if Josh Allen and Russell Wilson didn't exist, he'd be the MVP leader for me right now. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see, especially if Josh Allen can keep it up, because he's the unproven one of the 3. But he's a top 3 MVP candidate through 3 weeks right now to me. So next question is, who deserves most the blame for the struggles in Philadelphia? Since it's Brett's team, I'll let him go into depth on this one. Okay, I'll start out then, so you can take in depth after this.
Right.
I'm going to go, at this point in time, I'm going to have to start blaming the head coach. You can't be losing to some of these teams or tying some of these teams that you're losing and tying here. These are teams that you should beat, and I know that you have injuries. Every team's got injuries, and I know that Brent's not going to use that as an excuse for his team. and at some point it's got to fall back on the head coach. Some people would say it falls back on the quarterback too, but Wentz doesn't really have anybody to throw to, and that's kind of where I also blame the GM. Like, why are you not? You know that these receivers have not excelled. You've seen it, so I would have expected you to go get more help. I think drafting Jalen Reagor, when you could have had Justin Jefferson, to me was a mistake in the draft. And now we won't know for a while whether it is or not because now he's hurt. And it's just a combination of not excelling in picking up talent and injury problems on top of your already subpar talent in positions. It's just kind of bad luck. I don't blame Wentz at all. I feel bad for the guy. I think he's a really great quarterback who's getting a really bad rap in the media because he's got no help right now. So I would say probably 70-30 with the head coach, GM, and I put 0 on the quarterback. I just feel bad for him. He does make his mistakes, obviously. No quarterback's mistake-free, but it's hard to have trust with receivers that would be making Subway sandwiches if Philadelphia didn't contact them with football.
So if you haven't paid attention to sports, you know that the Eagles are not doing well right now. They are 0-2-1. They just tied the team that picked first overall in the draft last year. There's a lot of struggles on that team, and when it comes down to the blame, I think it's not necessarily you can blame them off of this year, but it goes back to years and years back, and I would have to say that's the GM, Howie Roseman. So the reason why I'm blaming Howie is Howie might be one of the worst recognizers of talent in the NFL draft that I've seen in a very long time. They draft wide receivers that should not be drafted in the position that they are. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, they drafted him in the second round before DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf was sitting there waiting. And DK Metcalf is turning into one of the bright stars of the NFL right now. They knew that they had injury problems on the offensive line, and they've done very little to address it. They have a lot of money this year. I know next year's cap penalties are cap hell. But this year you have a lot of money, and you can work contracts to fit the schedule. But they did not address very well the injury concerns that they had on the offensive line. And for some reason, Howie Roseman doesn't believe in the position of linebacker. So the Eagles have the worst linebacking crew that I've ever seen in the NFL, and they do nothing to improve it year after year. And you need good linebackers in order to have a successful secondary. And because we have no linebackers, our secondary is falling apart. So I don't put as much blame on Doug Peterson because I believe Doug Peterson's a phenomenal coach. He's making a lot of questionable calls of lately because his team has been put behind in a lot of these games where he's going for it in positions where I wouldn't necessarily agree with the call. And then if we don't convert, then it puts our team into a horrible position. And as much as everyone wants me to put a lot of blame on Carson Wentz, I will put a little bit. Carson Wentz has been making some really poor decisions this year. But at what point can you say it's not this dude's fault because he's throwing to Greg Ward, who was a quarterback 2 years ago. He's throwing to John Hightower, who was a 6th-round rookie. He's not even throwing to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside because that guy's trash. He lost arguably his best tight end in Goddard, which is surprising because Ertz is on that team. But Goddard and Wentz have been forming this repertoire, and when Goddard went down, that really hurt the team. Deshaun Jackson's 34 years old. He can't do it forever. There's just nobody there for Carson Wentz to get the ball to. So I wouldn't put as much blame on Carson Wentz as what the media is, because you take any quarterback in the NFL and give him the weapons that Carson Wentz has right now and see if he succeeds.
He's going to struggle.
I don't think that you'll have good numbers with him. I don't think Mahomes could take these guys and go win a whole bunch of football games with them. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
So my blame would probably be Howie Roseman. Howie, you got to do better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Neil wants to know what's both of our personal opinions on players who intentionally injure other players, like Tristan Hill intentionally gator rolled Chris Carson's leg. First of all, I want to say that's disgusting, and it's absolute. There's no place for it in the game. Okay, like I get that it's a hard hitting man's game, right? but there's a point where you're trying to hit somebody hard to make an impact. There's a point where you're trying to end their career and really hurt somebody. I feel like there should be a 2-strike system on something like that. If you can tell that it's a deliberate attempt to injure somebody, you should be suspended immediately, and after that you're out. Like, if you ever do it again, you're out. Because I believe everybody deserves a second chance, but if you're deliberately trying to injure people, like Vontaze Burfict should have been out of the league years ago. The fact that he's still here is a joke.
He's not here anymore.
I thought he was just suspended.
Suspended indefinitely. He doesn't have it.
Right, but he'll be back. My point is that eventually they'll lift that. They do
Well,
for everybody.
I think he got released, but I don't know who would be brave enough to take him.
I don't think anybody's gonna pick him up. But the point is, it's like the Ray Rice situation where teams are gonna have to avoid him, not the NFL, because the NFL will eventually give him his reinstatement at some point, I believe, because that's just how they are. If they don't, good. They're good for them finally taking a step forward. Yeah. But as of right now, he's just suspended, so we'll see where that goes. But it's long overdue for him anyway. He's been injuring players for years, and he's probably the reason Antonio Brown's the way he is right now is because of Vontaze Burfict. So, yeah, I think it should be a two-strike system. If you're intentionally injuring players, that should not be tolerated at all. The Cowboys defensive tackle deliberately tried to injure Chris Carson, and luckily for Carson, he only has a sprain and will probably only miss one game. But he should be done for the year. And then if he ever does it again, he should be done for his career. I think it should be a very strict penalty on intentionally injuring people. This is not a way for you to assault somebody and not go to jail for it. That's not what the league's about. The league's about having fun and providing for your family and just living the game you dreamed of as a kid, not ending people's livelihoods and shit like that. That's uncalled for.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's disgusting, honestly. There's really no excuse to try to injure someone like that. Because if you're going out of your way to try to take someone's player out of the game, you're openly admitting that you're not good enough to beat that team without taking that player out. I know Clowney is a big perpetrator of that. He deserves to not even be in the NFL. And he's not only because of the Carson Wentz thing, he's been known to just be a dirty player. And there's no room in the NFL for people that play like that. I wouldn't even give him a 2-strike rule. The only thing is it's very hard in some situations to tell if somebody was intentionally trying to hurt you or if it was the speed of the game. But the situation with Chris Carson, that was an obvious and blatant, I'm trying to take out one of your best players. There's no excuse for that.
What's up, Rosie?
Hey, Rosie. But then if you start putting a strike system, people are going to say, oh, well, if you get the penalty where you target the shoulder or head, then you should get suspended too because you're causing CTE potentially. And a lot of those plays are just completely accidental. You're trying to make the stop. But now, when it comes to those intentional plays that are just, you see them in the highlights and they're just so dirty, yeah, those people don't deserve to be in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can definitely tell it's deliberate injury, like not shots to the head on the quarterback where you're trying to make a sack, like play where the play's over and the guy literally keeps a hold of his leg and twists on the ground like an alligator, like, yeah, that's an intentional.
Yeah, no room for that.
Yeah, like that, you are intentionally trying to damage that player. Honestly, this is, I don't even like talking about it because it pisses me off. Top 3 early MVP candidates. I kind of briefly went over this earlier. But I got, right now, Russell Wilson. I don't think that needs any explanation. If you've watched any football over the first 3 weeks, there's no argument for it. There's just none. You can't make a single argument that says he's not the MVP leader right now. So, 2, there's a lot of argument about 2. I know a lot of it's from Packer fans. But if you've watched the Bills at all this year,
they're good.
Josh Allen deserves number 2. Okay, because the amount of leap that Josh Allen took from last year to this year, which I know they were a playoff team last year, but they weren't this good. Okay, and Josh Allen was not this good. Josh Allen was a very inaccurate, could make some plays, but would also really hurt you type player. Now he seems to do, he's only got 1 interception on the season. He's got a couple fumbles, but that's because he's mobile. He runs around. But the only interception he had, like, the Rams defender literally ripped it out of the tight end's hands this week. Like, it wasn't even Josh Allen. Josh Allen put the ball pretty much right where it needed to be, right over the head of the first defender, into the arms of the tight end, and just great play by the defender. It wasn't even on Josh Allen. So he should have 0 interceptions on the season. He's averaging almost 400 yards a game passing, and he's second in the league in touchdowns. Well, I don't know. Did Mahomes pass him on Monday?
I would have to look. I
think Mahomes is tied. So I think he's tied second in the league in touchdown passes. I'd have to double check, but I believe they both had 6, and they both threw 4. So they should have 10. That's still 4 behind Russell Wilson, if that tells you anything about the MVP conversation right now. And then I got to give it to Aaron Rodgers for 3. I know people in Kansas City are not going to be very happy. Mahomes has been great, but what Rodgers has done for that team that would be nowhere without Aaron Rodgers shows MVP more than Mahomes does. Mahomes my honorable mention. If you could have a 4 spot, I'd put Mahomes there. But Rodgers has not had a turnover this year, fumble or interception. Actually, the Packers are the only team that doesn't have a turnover this year. And he's, like Brent mentioned earlier, other than the Saints game, which not many people blow up the Saints, right? So he's just blowing people out. It's not close. I know the Vikings game was only a 9-point game, which is technically closer than the Saints, but it wasn't that close. I watched the whole game. Okay, Rodgers had his way with that defense. He's pretty much had his way with every defense he's played. New Orleans just kept it up there because Brees played his best game of the season against Green Bay. That's the only reason why they were even close, because offensively they couldn't stop Rodgers. So those are my top 3 as of now.
So my top 2 are the same as Coop's in that order. Russell Wilson, I mean, come on. The guy is literally taking the league by storm. And then you have Josh Allen. Josh Allen is playing lights out football. But wild card, I said it last week, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, I know he didn't play that great against Detroit, but quarterbacks have bad games. Detroit really did a good job. Detroit does that every year. They take 1 or 2 teams and they play their best football against them, and they shock you. Kyler Murray did not play good against Detroit, but Kyler Murray is still surprising me with how successful he's been in the first 3 games. That running ability that he has, he's not running like Lamar on every play that he has a chance to, but he's doing enough where he scores touchdowns with it. Keeps drives alive. Arizona looks really dangerous because of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's my number 3.
Yeah, I think Arizona's got a real threat in the NFC West. So I agree with you. If the Jets lose, it's rumored Gase gets fired, and if they win, should he be fired? And if he does, who's a good coach? For a fit, I don't care if they win or lose, he should be fired.
He needs to get
It was actually your turn to take this one, but screw it, I already started, so I'm going to go. Gase is not good, okay? It doesn't matter if they win. I mean, the Broncos are 0-3, and they're missing their entire team. So they have $54 million in injuries. So even if they beat the Broncos, like, ooh, big deal. Like, I mean, come on now. And I don't think they will, by the way, and you'll see that later. But Gase should be gone. Gase has absolutely made this team a dumpster fire. A team that had so much promise a few years ago that you would have thought by this time they would be the team that's running the division. That was where they were at a couple years ago. We were like, oh, a couple years this team, we run in the AFC East. Instead, that's Buffalo now, which you didn't see coming a couple years ago. And the Jets are the worst team in the division, which is bad because Miami's in your division. So, yeah, Gase has got to go, win or lose. If he loses, he's definitely going to be gone Friday. I don't think they're going to waste any time with that. They're looking for a reason to get him out, and honestly, I don't think any of the players would be really hurt by that. Who could replace him? I don't know, honestly. There's not a lot of real good head coaching vacancies out there. I could see a reunion with Rex Ryan. Back in the Jets, because I think that's the type of coach. I don't think he was a bad coach. I think he got hammered with being stuck with the GM, stuck with Mark Sanchez, and he had to work with it. I think that's pretty much what he was told, and then he had to take the fall for it. He's real good defensively. The Jets, only one of those years were they not a top 10 defense that Rex Ryan was there, right? And defense really helps you win football games, makes your offense that much better. And the Jets, since Gase got there, got worse on defense. They were a really good defense when he got there, and they've just plummeted. I would not mind seeing that if they could talk Rex into coming back. I know if there's a team that could get him to come back into coaching, it'd be the Jets. So I would really look at that. It wouldn't benefit Darnold any. So at that point, you may want to think about possibly trading Darnold, getting something out of him. and you're the worst team in football, so you could probably get Trevor pretty easily if you wanted to do that. So then he could start fresh. But that'd be the only coach without Go that I could think of, because other than Marvin Lewis, but I don't know if you want to settle for that. No offense, but he only had 7 seasons above 500 in Cincinnati, and he was there for 35 years. So, that's an exaggeration, obviously, but it felt like that. But yeah, see, other than hiring within, maybe you could find somebody within, but it's really hard for me to scout somebody that's like a coordinator, because you just never know how they're gonna do. All I know is just avoid Josh McDaniels. So. I don't know if you got anything to add to that.
I think that Gase is going to get fired on Friday no matter what happens. Especially if they struggle to beat the Denver Broncos with a third-string quarterback playing, Adam Gase is out the door. As for interim coach for the rest of the season, the Jets actually have a great defensive coordinator named Greg Williams. He took Baker Mayfield and made the Browns really good for the last half of the season, and then they decided to go with Freddie Kitchens, and then that team went downhill. Greg Williams could at least make the Jets a competitive football team, but I don't think he would be the head coach at the end of the year. I think the head coach of the year, or that would be at the end of the year, would be the Chiefs' offensive coordinator, Eric Bellamy.
That's a good one.
There's not a coordinator in the NFL that deserves a head coaching job more than Bellamy does. Look what he's done with he does all the play calling for the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid does not do that job. It's Bellamy, and it's just outstanding. It would create a reunion with Joe Douglas, who is the GM of the Jets. He came from Andy Reid's coaching tree. It just ties it all together. It's a great fit. I think that Bellamy could do a lot of good things with Darnold. I don't think that he'd necessarily have to go with Trevor Lawrence.
That's true. I think that'd be your best option if you want to keep Darnold for sure. Can the Chiefs go undefeated?
No. It's extremely hard to go undefeated in the NFL. Only 2 teams have ever done it. The Chiefs look great, but I don't think that they look as good as they have in not only last year when they won the Super Bowl, but the year before when Mahomes lit the league on fire. Teams know how to beat the Chiefs. It's just a lot of teams don't match up very well with the track team that they have lined up there. When it comes to looking at their schedule, there was a few games that stood out to me, and you have the Chargers. The Chargers literally took Kansas City to overtime with Herbert. I don't think they'll do it, but it's a possibility. But the one that I think is really going to knock Kansas City off is Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They're hosting the Chiefs. I know fans don't really make that much of a difference. Well, they do make a difference, but what I'm saying is, I know that the home field advantage isn't going to be the same.
I'm glad you corrected that.
Yeah, the home field advantage isn't going to be the same, so you don't have that advantage. But Tom Brady has beaten Mahomes multiple times before. He's going to do it again. He's got a lot more weapons in Tampa Bay than he has in New England. Yes, he's gotten older, but I think that they can game plan to win that game. So I have Buccaneers.
Can the Chiefs go undefeated? Yes, they can. Is it likely? No. I went over their schedule. If you would have asked me last week, I would have pegged Baltimore as a team that could have beat them, but as we've seen on Monday, that was not the case. There's a few teams on the schedule that I think could give them a run for their money. Unfortunately, the team that usually makes them struggle, Denver, is all beat up right now, so I'm going to take those guys out of the equation. Because by the time Drew Lock gets back, they're not going to be fighting for anything, so it's just going to be whatever at that point. So I think there's a few teams. They play New England this week. Belichick's beaten Mahomes many times. I think, what's his record? Is he 3-0 against him?
2-1.
2-1, okay. I knew he had a winning record against him. Okay, so he's 2-1 against him, so he's proven that he knows how to beat Mahomes.
That 2-1's not including the AFC Championship win either, so technically 3-1.
So 3-1. I thought he had 3 wins. Okay, so I wasn't losing my time. I was considering the AFC Championship game. So he's 3-1 against Mahomes. Cam Newton looks good. He's hot. He's a little hot and cold in the pass game, but as long as he's got his feet, his legs look 100%. He's going to be dangerous. but he's kind of like Lamar. So I do think they can beat him. I'm just pegging that as a game where it could be a possible upset here, just because Belichick's super smart and he's obviously the best coach in the league. So he could game plan for him better. Or they also got Vegas twice, and I don't know if you guys watched the games that they played against them last year where the scores didn't look good, but they were able to shut Mahomes down, especially in one of those games, except for one quarter. Mahomes completed less than 45% of his passes if you take out the second quarter of their first meeting last year, and so they found a way to do it. Now with Jonathan Abram in the back at safety too, that makes them even that much better. I know that they didn't have a very good performance against New England last week, but I feel like if they can score early, they're a threat. I feel like Carr doesn't have the confidence in himself to bring them back from behind is where the problem is. So it all depends on if they can get out there and score first. Kansas City's defense is okay, but it's not something that you're like scared of. So I feel like if Oakland can go out there and take a good first drive down the field and score, there'll be a lot of confidence and they could be a threat. Not saying they're gonna beat them. I'm not predicting them to beat them. It's just possible losses that I've marked on the schedule. And then they also have Tampa Bay, as he mentioned. Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Those could both be good because by the time they play New Orleans, Michael Thomas will be back, and that's a whole new team. So those two teams could be a threat also. I would say definitely Tampa Bay would be more. Not because I necessarily think Tampa Bay is a better team, but because I think just the numbers Tom Brady's beating Mahomes. And if they do start to click, I would hate to see the type of chemistry that they have. They're not great right now, but again, we're only 3 weeks in without a training camp, so we'll see where that goes. I'm not ready to judge their offense as it is right now. Plus, Tampa Bay's defense is better than New Orleans, and they've been balling out. That defense is disruptive to offenses, and if they can get in Mahomes' face, cause him to make some bad throws, he's not going to be able to just whip balls up on that Tampa Bay defense like he does on some other teams. And that's just how it is. And they definitely can, but they have a couple games on the schedule where they have bumps in the road, and I want to see those matchups. But yeah, we'll see. We'll also see if Mahomes can keep up the magic from last year, because honestly, his first two games to me were kind of they weren't Mahomes like. Monday was Mahomes like. That was good. That was what I wanted to see. He hasn't played bad, but when you put him on a pedestal of Mahomes, this wasn't the same. So we'll see where we go from there. Thoughts on Adrian Peterson's continued success? I gotta say, honestly, I'm one of the biggest Adrian Peterson fans you'll see out there. I did not think he had this much left in the tank. I know he ran well in Washington, but he was slow. He looked slower in Washington. He wasn't making the cuts that he normally was making. He was just kind of bullying his way through the line in Washington, which was fine for his age. That was fine. It worked. It got him 1,000 yards. He probably could have had more, but Washington was always losing. But in Detroit, you see, he looks like he's got fresh legs. He's not like a speedster by any means. But when he hits that hole, he's cutting like he was when he was 28. Like, he's making people miss in the hole. Not gonna run away from you now, but he's still got those cuts, and he's breaking ankles, and he looks good. He looks like he's having fun out there. I was not expecting him to take over the lead running back job there. A lot of people were high on DeAndre Swift, and Adrian Peterson's making it so that guy hardly even sees the field at this point. So, and they just announced yesterday morning, Adrian Peterson is going to be the number one running back in Detroit for the season. So, that's saying something, because when he got picked up, literally, I was thinking 5-6 carries a game. He was going to be there to help the young kids, and I believe that's still the case. He is really there. He's not the long-term solution. He's there to help those two. But what he's done, he's impressed. He's just been impressive. And they need to continue to use him, and not like week 2 in Green Bay where they gave it to him in the first quarter and they just kind of abandoned it. They need to continue to hand the rock off. That helps Stafford a lot. Sets up those play actions. With Kenny G back, it really helps that passing offense a lot when the defense can't lay off the run. So, he's looking like the real Iron Man right now. So.
Yeah, I agree. Adrian Peterson looks really good with the Lions. And the worst thing the Lions can do right now is mess with what's working and start giving Kerryon and Swift the ball more, because look what happened in Detroit. They were keeping it close with Detroit. You pull Adrian Peterson out of that game, with Green Bay, and Green Bay literally opened it up on him. Adrian Peterson does not look like a 35-year-old running back right now. He looks good. So as long as Bevel and Patricia don't pull him out of the game, he's going to continue to have success there. He's going to continue to have success there. Adrian Peterson has been surprising to me for sure. The next one's about Zimmer.
Do you see the Wolves eating their money and firing Zimmer if the Vikings don't pick it up?
I'll start this because this is your team. You can go more in detail. No. Zimmer is a great head coach. I would put him as a top 10 head coach in the league. He has the Vikings like perennially in the playoffs. I know chances are they're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. But just 3 years ago, he was in the NFC Championship game. He's the Saints' daddy. He literally wins the Vikings playoff games all the time. And just because he has one bad year, you're going to like start trying to pull the plug on him? No. Zimmer is a phenomenal head coach. He doesn't deserve to be judged off of one bad season.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Vikings fans do this all the time. They're not happy unless they win a ring, which is puzzling to me because they've never won a ring. Right? Like it makes me so mad because it's like, how can you guys have these high expectations? You've never even been there before. Like you've never grabbed the brass ring before. Like chill. Yeah, you're not gonna have success all the time. Zimmer last year won him a playoff game and they were still calling for his head when the season was over. Oh, fire him! Blah blah. We got beat up by San Francisco in the second round of the playoffs. Like, oh yeah, well, there's like 20 other teams that wish they were in your position. Like. I mean, come on now. The thing that's hurting this team was no training camp because those corners out there needed training camp. Okay, and I know you're going to say we had a training camp, right? But that's not the same. You cut 80% of training camp out, so those young corners didn't get a chance to work, and they're starting to look a little better. Last week against Tennessee, they looked a little better. I know they gave up 31 points. They had a couple big plays they gave up. You take those away, and they demolished Tennessee. But that's part of the game. They're going to get better at that. Like I said, baby steps. They're taking steps forward. We're starting to get some pressure on the quarterback. Danielle Hunter will be back soon. I do not know his status for this Sunday. I've not heard a single update. That's probably not good, so he's probably not going to play. But he'll be back sooner rather than later, and that'll help even more. Yannick's finally looking like Yannick. He's finally gelling with the defense. Zimmer's a defensive specialist. He'll figure this out. Like Brent said, they may not make the playoffs this year. But it's not like panic mode, but we'll probably be right back to being a contender again next year. You just got to chill. But the one thing they need to do is look competitive if they want to re-sign Yannick. Because he wants to be on a competitive football team. So just show him that it was a bad start and that you guys are ready to gun-ho. I think if they can finish 8-8, I think Yannick will be wanting to sign there long-term. So, but good news is they signed up Dalvin Cook, which was their huge... which was the huge worry for them before the offseason, so I'd rather get that.
Are they the worst team in the country? No.
No, yeah, we answered that before you got on. We got your question already. No, there's plenty of worse teams than the Vikings in the conference. He even thinks there's worse teams in the division, but
Detroit.
There's definitely worse teams in the conference. Vikings wouldn't give up multiple 20-point leads. I can tell you that right now. Atlanta.
Looking at you, dirty birds.
So... yeah, let's see. Any players that are doing a lot worse or better than you thought? Well, we just went over one. Adrian Peterson's doing a lot better than anybody probably anticipated. I'm going to go with one that might be a little shocking to people. I'm going to say DeAndre Hopkins is doing a lot better. I thought because of Kyler Murray's play style and because the fact they have a lot of young receivers over there, he would not be the same production-wise. He's obviously still just as talented. His talent level didn't go down, but... he's killing it. He's like getting so open that Kyler can't even worry about the young receivers. He's like, oh, D-Hop, whoop! like it's crazy. Like, he's killing it right now, and I'm extremely shocked. Players that are doing worse than I thought, there's a handful of people. T.Y. Hilton doesn't even have a touchdown. I don't think I've heard his name through 3 weeks of football, except for dropping a wide-open touchdown pass against the Vikings. That was a 50-yard beauty by Phillip Rivers that hit him in the chest, and he just dropped it in the end zone. I would say I'm pretty disappointed in him. He's been a top receiver as long as he's healthy. For the Colts for years now, I didn't expect that, and Kirk Cousins a little bit, I would think, but I think that's adjusting a little bit to losing Diggs and the fact that they weren't on the field very often for the first 2 weeks. So he looked a lot better last week against Tennessee, so I expect that to be better now. And Sam Darnold, I kind of expect him to play better, but I've already went over my reasonings of why I think Darnold's not playing good. So anybody you want to add to that list?
So for a player that I think is playing worse than I expected, obviously Carson Wentz. He's not playing that great.
I agree, Martin.
Yeah, Martin, D-Hop, it's tough to argue that he's not the best wide receiver in the league. But for a player that has, like, completely shown me wrong, you'll never hear us talk about it again, probably, Xavier Rhodes.
Oh, God damn it, man.
When Xavier Rhodes was a Viking his final 2 years, it looked like the roads were wide open. Anybody could score a touchdown on him, except for Michael Thomas.
He's Michael Thomas' daddy.
But for some reason, when Xavier Rhodes left Minnesota and went to Indy, he just remembered that he was a lights-out cornerback again. And he had 2 interceptions against the Jets. I know it's the Jets, but
one was a pick six.
Yeah, one was pick six. It's still hard to get interceptions in the NFL. I don't care who you're playing. And Darnold's not a bad quarterback. So to have 2 picks on Darnold and one of them being a pick six, that's great. And Xavier Rhodes is really turning it around for me. Yeah, those are my 2.
I want to add one more player because I thought Brent was going to say it's the only reason why I didn't. It's pretty obvious. I don't have to explain it, but Josh Allen.
Yeah, I left him off
Josh
that list
Allen.
because it was an obvious
I
one.
guess we kind of both figured it would be on each other's list, so we didn't put it down. But
I actually did have it on my list, but
no, you do. You do. You do.
I have Gardner Minshew as well. Even though he played very poorly against the Dolphins, he's been doing really well considering the talent that he's got on his team.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even think of that. Actually, that's pretty good too. Why is Seattle secondary still slowing down halfway through games? I don't know if they're necessarily slowing down or if the defensive coordinator is starting to have them play more prevent defense, which, by the way, I think they start a little too early. Okay, like, you're supposed to play prevent defense when you're up by, like, 17 with, like, 9 minutes to go so they don't score any big ones quick. So they have to take time off the clock going 8, 9, 10 yards at a time. That's what
Take notes, Atlanta. Start playing prevent defense when you're up 20 4 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, so you don't get burnt for long touchdowns by Nick Foles.
The GOAT.
Yeah. In the playoffs. I don't feel like Seattle's got too much to worry about. The secondary didn't look too bad. They had a nice interception on Dak. They should have had a second interception on Dak. Fluke play, bounced off the guy's chest, and then Gallup caught it and went for like 30-some yards. So that's just a fluke play. The guy was in perfect position. He's a cornerback for a reason, not a wide receiver. So he made the play that he was supposed to make. It's just one of those plays you don't know what to do. And Dak kind of the Cowboys get behind, so he kind of throws the ball all over the place. So just because he had a lot of yards, I don't think there's a lot to look at that. Also, Atlanta's defense also got torched for like 280 yards in the fourth quarter by Matt Ryan because they were down by like 30-something. Yeah. So, that was garbage time yards. I expect that. I don't think Seattle's defense is that bad. They're not elite, but they're not that bad. And Pete Carroll's a defensive-minded coach, so they're always going to make the play when they need to make the play. Just like they did against New England. They didn't stop Cam Newton the whole time, but the one play they had to stop Cam Newton, they bucked up and stopped Cam Newton and won the game. That's what they do. All right, like they're a bend but don't break defense is the best way to put them, right? You can bend them for yards, but they're not going to break to allow teams to win games on them. And they know how to recover onside kicks, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I got the same exact response as Coop. Seattle doesn't have a bad defense. It's just when you're so dominant on offense, you don't really have to play lights-out defense to win these football games. Yeah, so I wouldn't even put Seattle as a poor defense. I start them on my fantasy football team all the time. And they do good enough.
I also want to point out that when Russell Wilson has 14 TDs through 3 weeks, the defense is on the field a lot.
Yeah.
So I just want to point that out too. So they're probably tired. I'm just going to point that out. At some point, the defense is like, yo, Russ, can you not throw 5 TDs today?
Yeah.
We'll be the first team to beat Kansas City. We already answered that. What do you guys think about the Colts defense? Is it for real after week 3? Currently got a lot of top 5 stats in the league on defense. You want to go ahead? You want to take this one first?
Yeah. What Colts defense is going to show up? Because you have the Colts defense that embarrassed the Vikings and embarrassed the Jets. And a lot of those top 5 statistics are going against the Jets. So the numbers are a little inflated after 3 weeks. Or you're going to get the Colts defense that lost to Gardner Minshew with nobody there. The Colts don't have a bad defense. I started their defense in fantasy football last week against the Jets. Got me 34 points. It was great. But you can't argue that your team has a top 5 defense when you let Gardner Minshew light you up with maybe worse weapons than Carson Wentz has Philadelphia. The Colts have the pieces there, and when they want to play, they play very well, but they're not consistently doing it after 3 weeks. They did against a really poor team in the Jets. I don't have the Vikings as a poor team. I think they're a good team with a bad record. And they did very well against Kirk Cousins. But if you let Gardner Minshew light you up, I can't say that you're your top 5 defense. So just for me, it depends what Colts decide to dress up that Sunday.
So I want to know something about the Colts defense. Are they better without their starters? Because Malik Hooker went down, Rocky Sin went down, and they've been better.
Yeah.
Like I just want to point that out. I'm not trying to make any assumptions because those are both to my knowledge, the best of my knowledge, those are 2 really good players. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, Gardner Minshew completed almost every pass he threw in week 1. But since those 2 went down, Kirk Cousins struggled. Sam Darnold looked like he was a high schooler. So I just want to know what kind of chemistry change happened there, because you might want to continue rolling with it. Maybe give some of the other guys that are coming in chances to just continue to play, even if some of the other one of the 2's out for the season. I don't remember. Was it Hooker?
Malik
I think it was Hooker, right?
Which that guy can't stand. If he's Bob Sanders,
true, he is. Y'all need to really look at better safeties, more durable ones, because you have a history of bad ones.
But Rocky Sin's injury did lead to the rebirth of Xavier Rhodes.
Roads closed.
The roads are closed.
Maybe if you would have just not played week 1, we would have seen it for 3 weeks now. But we've seen it for 2 out of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Rhodes has played really well. So, I do think the Colts got a good defense. I think I think the defense struggled against Jacksonville more because they came in with their heads inflated, thinking they were going to win this game 34-7. Mm-hmm. And stop doing that against divisional opponents. You should never do that against teams that play you twice a year. Okay, I don't care who you are. Ask Philly. They should have had Washington by 30 points, but
they lost by 27.
But you just don't. You just can't do that. Especially you shouldn't do that against anybody, but especially divisionally, because those teams know you so well. They see you every year, twice a year. They know, and they get up for those games, those rivalry games. They want to beat those teams. But I think they've been impressive weeks 2 and 3. I think I'm really going to get a better. Not this week because they play the Bears, who even with Foles are not like a high potent offense. But when they play somebody like Deshaun Watson, or the Tennessee team where they have to stop Derrick Henry all the time, I want to see them play teams like that can score points on you, and then I'll judge it, because yes, they played the Vikings and they did good, but the Vikings were hardly even on the field too. So I just want to point that out. So their defense didn't really have their hands full. So I want to see like a full game where they have to play on their toes against somebody good, because right now anybody looks good against the Jets. Mm-hmm. So yes, I think the Colts defense is for real, in my opinion, but I do want to see them again before I 100% say that they are elite. Yeah. But impressive so far, yes, absolutely. Why do the Vikings suck? We already went over that. All right, so we're gonna go into the picks now.
Before we do that, 30-second intermission. My phone died on the way home from work. I have all my picks on my phone, so don't go anywhere.
Today's episode is brought to you by Surge. Delicious blend of Squirt and Sprite for all your Nintendo 64 playing days. Surge better pay us for that. I just did a whole commercial for Surge.
All 30 seconds.
Yeah, like one of those quick ones that used to be like those infomercials, real quick, with the show came back. You know? All right, we're gonna start with the game of the week this week.
Oh god.
Thursday night game, the 0-3 Broncos, who are starting Brett Ripien.
I think that's
you pronounce his name right. Mark Ripien was like his dad or his uncle or something like that.
It doesn't matter.
Versus Sam Darnold and Adam Gase, right? Okay, so if you're super bored, you can go ahead and throw this on or something. I mean, I'm going to watch it just because I love football, but I'm not expecting anything out of this game. Like, I mean, if you're going to ask me my expectations out of this game, I'd say a lot of punts. A lot of punts.
Could be a high-scoring affair because both teams are so trash.
It could be, but that's fair. It could be, maybe, but a lot of times these type of teams play and it winds up 6-3 just because the QBs are not very good.
Yeah.
And like I've said before, I think Darnold's a good QB with a coach that's making him look bad. So we're just gonna call him a bad QB for this matchup. I see this as a very, very sloppy game. You're not gonna get any exciting plays out of this game. If you have kickers, if you guys play fantasy football with kickers, start the kickers in this game. Probably gets a lot of field goal points. I'm going to take Denver, though, because the Jets are just that bad. I 100% believe Dan Orlovsky when he said this week that the 2008 0-16 Lions would beat the Jets 16 out of 16 times. And I believe that. I 100% believe that. Because at least the 08 Lions were competitive for 3 quarters. This Jets team is terrible. Like, they're not competitive at all. Like, from the opening kickoff to the end of the game, they're bad. Like, they're bad. Like, you can spot them 20 points in every game, and they still find ways to lose all these games. Seriously.
Would you say that Browns team would be?
I think the Browns team was better than the Lions team, so I'm going to say yeah.
That team was bad.
Yeah, but their defense is much better than the 08 Lions team.
Yeah.
The only difference is they have Kaiser. Like, it's the only.
the 08 Lions, I think, got screwed a lot. They should have had like 4 wins on that year.
They went up to double-digit leads on a lot of teams that year, but. Yeah, I'm going to pick Denver, just like I said, because I think the Jets are the worst team that's ever played in this league. I'm going to say that right now. Through 3 weeks, that's my opinion on them. That's bad.
Yeah, I'm going with the Denver Broncos, even though they're starting a 3rd-string quarterback. The Jets are not a good football team. So, if you're out of Netflix shows, if you don't want to pick up, like, knitting with your grandma, any boring stuff, if you're out of all that, then maybe watch the game. But if you have anything even remotely to do, it'd probably be better than watching that football game. I think it's going to be an ugly game. No one's going to really want to watch it. Probably the worst rated Thursday night football game we're probably ever going to see.
It really will be. Especially since it's not even dual broadcast. It's just on NFL Network.
Yeah.
It's not even on Fox. So, which is the last week of that, by the way.
We got our weekly little sidekick here. He jumped in. Want to get some camera time? No. Broncos win this football game.
All right. Then we got Indy at Chicago.
So a lot of people don't realize this, but this is going to be a reunion with a head coach and a quarterback that won a Super Bowl together. Frank Reich, Nick Foles, they finally meet again. I think that Indianapolis is going to win this football game. They've played a lot of good football as of late, and I think the Bears are the worst 3-0 team in the league. Well, arguably. We'll get into that later, too. But I think the Bears aren't going to... It's not like they're facing the Falcons where they can come back from double-digit points. Colts are going to win this football game.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Colts, too. Not only do I think the Bears are the worst 3-0 team in the league, they're the worst 3-0 team in my memory. Look at the Bears' schedule here, okay? They've played the Lions, right? They were a drop TD pass away from losing that game. They played the Giants. Saquon Barkley was hurt in the first quarter. They won that game by 4 on a goal line, like a 5 yards away, 5 yards away from losing that game. Like literally, if Daniel Jones puts a ball in a receiver's hands down there, they lose. Then they play Atlanta, who had a 26-10 lead, and they're just notorious for absolutely blowing games in the fourth quarter. And they came back on them after benching Mitch Trubisky. So the Bears are not a good football team. I have a Bears fan, Tyler Schmidt, who likes to brag about his Bears being 3-0 right now. Like, I would not be running my mouth about this team. Like, you're 3-0, but are you really proud of the way you've been 3-0? Like, once you face a decent team, you're gonna get beat. And that's what you're facing now. The Colts are a team who I think came out with their heads big and lost to a Jacksonville team they shouldn't have lost to. But now they're playing football like many people expected them to play football this year. And I think their defense is too much for that Chicago Bears offense. And if you think that Kirk Cousins struggled against this Bears defense, wait till you see Nick Foles, who hasn't had a starting gig in the league in 7 years. So it should be they should hold the Bears in pretty well there. And then the Bears defense isn't what it once was. So I'm not saying it's a bad defense, but it's not that elite defense anymore, and it looks every day more like Vegas won that trade with the Bears for Khalil Mack. Because he hasn't been the Khalil Mack that he was supposed to be, except for the first year he was in Chicago. So, I got Indy winning this one probably by just over one score. So, we'll see where it goes, but Indy in a decent one. Jacksonville at Cincy. This is the game Joe Burrow gets his first win for me. Jacksonville, again, not a lot of talent on that team. And Gardner Minshew, who I thought was a bright spot on their team, really, really looked bad last Thursday. So I just feel like Jacksonville's talent level is finally starting to show. They had a great win against Indy that a lot of people didn't think they could do, and I think that's the highlight of their season. I don't think that they have the talent level to compete. I don't think they have the talent level to compete with anybody. I'm not sure if the Jets are on their schedule, but that'll be the only other game I probably pick Jacksonville in. Because I think the Jets are just that bad. I was very close to picking the worst team in the NFL, but I think there's only one team worse than them, and it's the Jets. I just don't. It's going to be in Cincy. Even though they tied last week, Cincy feels good. Okay, they've played a really close game that they should have won against the Chargers. They played at least competitively against the Browns. It wasn't as close as the final score was, but they played competitively. They kept it respectful. And then they just tied Philly, who they should have had no business even being in the game against either. So this Bengals team has a little confidence. They haven't won a game yet, but they feel like they're good enough to win some games. And I think Joe Burrow's playing really good. He's looked good through 3 weeks of the season. I think all 3 weeks. I think his worst game was against the Chargers, but I think he's looked real good, real confident. As long as the offensive line doesn't get him killed like last week, I think they should. I think they should handle this one pretty easily, in my opinion. So the Bengals get their first win right here.
Yeah. Addison, if you're watching this, I'm never picking the Jaguars again. You made me look like an idiot last week. All jokes aside. Now, the Jaguars are not a good football team. We've been saying this for weeks. And we look like we were wrong week 1. But the Jaguars, eventually, you run out of that magic, and they ran out of that magic week 1.
Yeah.
That they had all the gas in the tank, and they were running on E from there. Not saying that Joe Burrow is not saying the Bengals are a good football team. They're not a bad football team. But Joe Burrow, minus getting sacked just a metric ton of times last week, which was great. He was just carving Philadelphia to pieces when he wasn't on his back. Who on Jacksonville is going to burst through and sack him 8 times? There isn't any.
Oh, buddy, you traded that guy to Minnesota, so.
Yeah, so Burrow's going to throw for over 300 yards. He's going to throw 3 passing touchdowns, hopefully to T. Higgins. I have him on my fantasy team. Or Tyler Boyd, I have him on my fantasy team. But, no, the Bengals are going to win this game. It shouldn't even be close. This should be, like, Joe Burrow's, like, entrance to the NFL. Like, this is the Joe Burrow you're going to expect to see moving forward.
All right, Cleveland at Dallas.
Cleveland Browns are going to win this football game, and it's not because I'm an Eagles fan. It's because I don't think the Cowboys are that good. They beat a really bad Falcons team. Yes, it was a miraculous comeback, but
Everyone does that.
But if the Falcons knew what an onside kick was, then Dallas wouldn't have a win so far this season. Yes, they played Seattle fairly well. It was a tight game, but like we discussed earlier, Seattle's defense has given up a lot of plays. So Cleveland is starting to click after they got embarrassed week 1. That looks like a very dangerous football team. They put up 34 points on the Washington football team. They put up 34 points on them against a pretty good defense. They put up, I think, 35 points on the Bengals. That team is dangerous. There's way too many weapons on that team to be losing to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means, but I think Cleveland should win this by about 10 points.
Okay, so Cowboys fans, I want you to listen to me real quick, and I want you to just digest what I'm gonna say to you and answer it in your head as I say it to you out loud. Do you think that your defense can stop Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? Really? Come on now. Let's be real here. That team is going to run all over you. Okay, they're going to run all over you. And just when you're going to stack the box, they're going to burn you over the top with OBJ or with Jarvis Landry. I don't think Dallas got much of a chance in this game against the Browns. They're just too good on the ground. And I think Cleveland finally has a head coach that's at least capable enough of processing the fact that they don't have to force Baker to try to win games for them. Okay, I think Baker is a solid quarterback that's not ever going to hit that elite level, but he's going to be good enough where he can make decisions, the right decisions to help you win football games. But it really helps him when you have two running backs that are running all over the place, and he does not have to force the ball to OBJ deep to try to come back in games, right? Pound the ball, let the teams believe you're going to run it, and then have him play action bootleg like he's been doing. Mm-hmm. That's working. Keep doing it. You don't have to have him throw for 400 yards. I don't know why they tried to do that all last year. Oh, Freddie Kitchens, that's why. You don't. When you have running backs like you have, passing should be a second priority. I know you got two great wide receivers, and you have two great tight ends. But the thing is that that's great. That helps you after when you play action off the play action, right? You still don't need to be past one because your running backs are just. Broncos about to turn things around this week. I would hope so. They are playing the worst team in football. I really hope so. But Cleveland does not have to force the ball to these guys they have out there. And look, people think that Odell cries because he doesn't lack of production. But I've told people this for years. Odell doesn't care as long as they're winning. Odell wants to win football games. He has not cared that he only got 4 catches for 59 yards last week. He didn't care. You want to know why? Because they won the game. He didn't care. He was extremely happy. Keep doing that, and your whole team's going to stay happy. There won't be no drama there at all, nothing. Okay, I think they finally figured out the formula here. Baker should only have to throw if the run game is absolutely shut down. I don't think there's anybody in the Cowboys defense that for some reason, on paper, they look like one of the best teams in the league every year, but they can never capitalize. It doesn't matter who their head coach is. So, until Dallas shows me something, I got to go with Cleveland because they look like they're the team that's gelling better. All right, Sheldon, you got to move. All right, New Orleans at Detroit. In my heart, I wanted to pick Detroit. I really did. I think they looked a lot better last week. I like that Patricia brought some pressure. They stopped playing man coverage every down of the game. It really helped that defense, but I just feel like Sean Payton's not going to lose 3 games in a row. It's not going to happen. Drew Brees played his best game of the season last week. He carved up that Packers defense. He's not going to beat you deep, obviously, right? But he finds the holes in the middle of your secondary about 10 yards out, and he finds it. And it's always there for them for some reason. And the Lions are not good enough defensively to stop that. So they're going to force Stafford and the offense to have to score every possession. I know, Martin. I know you hate to see it. But I got to be honest. In my heart, I hope they do win. It's good to see them get a win against a good football team, but Matt Patricia's like a week 3 god. That's what he does. He's undefeated in week 3. He's 3-0.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, but after that, he's shit. So, listen to my heart. Yeah, I want to, but it's hard to. Drew Brees 3 games in a row. I can't do it. The good thing for Lions fans, for like you, Martin, is their schedule turns into like super soft. Just bad football teams after this outside of the Colts. So you guys should be able to make a run if you can play some good football after this. But it ain't going to be this week. I got New Orleans. I think it'll be close just because the Lions traditionally play close football games. But it's just one of those teams where, unlike Kyler, who's young and developed, you got veteran Drew Brees who's been here for like 68 years. Who, if he has the ball in his hands with the chance to win the game like Kyler did last week, he's gonna go down and score. He's not gonna be 3-and-out and punt. So that's the problem you have this week as opposed to last week. So I take the Saints in a close one in Detroit.
Yes. So I swear I say this like all the time. You guys, no one believes me, but I don't hate the Lions when I'm about to say this.
I don't even believe them.
The Lions are not gonna win this football game. When you look at, like, Drew Brees knows what's on the line. Sean Payton knows what's on the line. If they lose to the Lions, they'll be 1-4 to start the season, or 1-3 to start the season. That's not a good look. That 1-3 might be enough that they'd be fighting for the 6 or 7 seed in the NFC with how stacked it is, because they're not gonna clear the rest of their.
Yeah, they're gonna make a run once Thomas gets back, but they don't want to start 1-3.
Yeah. Detroit really surprised me last week. Last week we talked. I said Arizona was gonna be over at halftime, but the Lions came out and played ball. They're not gonna be able to do the same thing that they did to Kyler, that they did to Drew Brees. Can you think of the last time Drew Brees threw 4 interceptions in a game? Doesn't happen very often. He doesn't throw 4 in a year. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout because Michael Thomas is not playing, but I think it's gonna be a pretty convincing win. Where the Lions just don't have the defense to keep Drew Brees off the field, and it's just gonna get ugly.
I just want to point out too that I'm also fearing that Matt Patricia thinks he's smarter than everybody, so he's just gonna resort back to playing man coverage again the whole game. So
maybe he'll put 2 pencils in his ears, and it will just make it way better. No, New Orleans wins this game, like way more than what, and I feel comfortable picking with the Lions.
All right, Pittsburgh at Tennessee. Note, this game is probably going to take place on Tuesday.
Yep.
But it's still right here, just so we can go in order. We're going to talk about this game now. So.
All right, so yesterday I text Coop, and I say, don't pick the Vikings and don't pick the Titans because of the whole COVID thing that's going on with those two teams, even though the Vikings didn't have any positive tests.
And they can practice now.
But at first it looked like you couldn't practice. So I said, stay away from Tennessee, stay away from Minnesota. That left my mind today when I was picking picks. I'm going with Tennessee. And here's the reason why. This is going to be shocking. I said earlier that I thought that Chicago is the worst, or one of the worst 3-0 teams. I actually think Pittsburgh's the worst 3-0 football team. They have a good defense. Offense is not there. Yes, they did pretty decent against Houston, but Houston has nothing to play for right now. They're done. They're cooked. They're macaroni. They're done. Pittsburgh, their defense looks lights out. I don't have any faith in Ben Roethlisberger anymore. When the guy talks about he can't even get off the field, he needs help getting off the field after games, got to get his wheelchair out, I think it's time that he starts to acknowledge that he's done. Even when his number one wide receiver says that he'd rather have a different quarterback over Ben Roethlisberger.
That's not what he said.
Yes, he did. He said, if there was a way to get Sam Darnold on this team, I would do it. If you want Sam Darnold over Ben Roethlisberger, then it's time to admit that Ben's not getting it done. No, I don't have any faith in Pittsburgh. They barely beat the Giants. They barely beat the Broncos. Those are teams that they should have beat by double digits, and they didn't do it. I think they technically beat the Giants by 10, but it's the Giants. No, I think Tennessee looks good. Tennessee's going to win this game, and I think it's going to be a pretty convincing game. I think that they're going to expose Pittsburgh.
Okay, so Brent doesn't believe in Big Ben. I do. Big Ben looks good this year. He statistically is having the best year out of any of the AFC North quarterbacks. And I looked at all the stats today. That's backed up statistically.
Yeah,
so,
but the AFC North, you got Joe Burrow.
No, I'm not saying he is the best. I'm saying that statistically through 3 weeks, he's having the best season of the AFC North quarterback. I don't like what Brent said, that he feels like he gets hit by a bus every game. So it may be a matter of time before he starts to fall off and can't do it for a full season, whatever. But I'm picking Pittsburgh but it's not because of Ben. I do believe in Big Ben, but I think his time's coming to an end. We'll see as the season goes on if he falls off. But I believe Pittsburgh's defense is elite. And Tennessee runs through Derrick Henry. And if T.J. Watt in that defense hits Henry early and puts him back and he can't get over the 100-yard mark, then it's going to be a problem. Because Tannehill plays well when the defense is buying the run. Mm-hmm. If they shut the run down early, then the defense doesn't have to care about the run as much. Because they already wrapped him up. It's just a thing that goes through teams' head. Historically, it's been proven. If you can shut a running back down early, then usually the pass offense won't succeed if you're a run-first team. So that's what they got to do. It happens with the Vikings all the time. Dalvin Cook don't get going early. Kirk Cousins struggles. It happens. And so I'm taking them just because I think that defense is legit. I don't 100% know if Ben Roethlisberger is going to be able to make it there, but this defense is going to keep them in games. It did it last year. They went 7-9 with a quarterback who couldn't lace Ben Roethlisberger's cleats. So, the defense is good. It'll keep them in games. I don't know how much of a threat they'll be in the playoffs, but they're good enough to take them to the playoffs, even if Big Ben winds up being mediocre. So I got the Steelers because Tennessee's won their defense, and Tennessee's not going to be able to practice. So they might be able to practice on like a Saturday, but as of right now, they're not going to be able to practice. The game's probably going to be played on Tuesday, which, by the way, anybody making Week 5 picks, keep that in mind that they played on a Tuesday, both these two teams, okay? It's not official for Tuesday, but it looks like they're leaning Tuesday. But it'll be Monday or Tuesday for sure. And I don't want to hear any comments about the game might not be played. It's being played. Okay?
They've already announced.
They already said the game's being played. The 4 people who tested positive are being held out. The rest of the team should be good. So, I got Pittsburgh. Seattle at Miami. I don't know how much I really have to talk about this game. You got a dumpster fire in the Dolphins and the reigning MVP through 3 weeks in Russell Wilson. I just think Seattle should run away with this game before the first quarter is even over. To the question about Seattle's defense, if Seattle allows Miami to score a lot of points, come back with that question again for next week. Okay, because I really feel like it was a lot of garbage time stuff, but you should not let Ryan Fitzpatrick carve you up if you're Seattle. I know he has great games once in a while, but the Dolphins don't have the squad to be putting up those kind of numbers. So, please, we're going back and ask this question again for the podcast next week if they struggle. But I don't have a lot to say about this game because it's really, really easy to see why I'm picking Seattle. So,
I got less things to say. Seattle.
All right, Chargers at Tampa. What you got here?
So Herbert versus Brady. I think this is going to be a pretty easy one. Herbert had that flash in the pan against Kansas City. Took him to overtime. Didn't look as great last week when teams had a whole week to prepare for him. I don't think the Chargers are that talented this year. Tom Brady is going to win this football game. Very confident in that. And maybe this is the week you start seeing Mike Evans and Tom Brady have more than just 2 catches, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He's going to have to. Godwin ain't playing.
Yeah, so this might be, if you have Mike Evans, start him because I feel like he's going to do pretty well. Buccaneers win this one pretty convincingly.
Yeah, I got Tampa too.
Yeah, it's the defense.
I was just about to say that too. Wow, you just beat me to the punch. I literally was just about to stop say that. No pun intended. Herbert looked like a rookie last week. I think the reason why he looked so good against Kansas City was because they prepared for Tyrod Taylor all week.
Yep.
And they're 2 completely different players. So when you have no film or no time to prepare for anybody, the outcome's different. Plus, he probably had a lot of adrenaline pumping through him, knowing 10 minutes before the game he was going to get the start. That changes things. So, but I'm telling you, he better start performing because Tyrod will get the job back if he doesn't when he comes back. So, he's got probably this week and probably next week still to attempt to run away with this job. Unfortunately, the schedule scheduling gods don't want Herbert to keep the job. So like, it's a tough slate of games he has to go through. Yeah, I just don't think even if Tom Brady's not clicking with his receivers, I think that Tampa Bay defense is too much.
Mm-hmm.
But if Tom Brady is clicking with it, this game will be over by halftime.
Yeah.
I do like the Chargers defense. That's why I don't think Brady's going to look all that great yet this week, because the Chargers defense is pretty good. I will say that's the strength of their team. They got a nice young pair of running backs, but Tampa Bay's been really good against the run. Ask Christian McCaffrey, who's had his worst career games of his entire career against the Tampa Bay run defense. So it's really going to be on the arm of Herbert, and I don't think he's ready for that. I don't think he doesn't look like he's gelled with his receivers. He was way off the mark with quite a few throws last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a friend of ours, Dylan, really wants this kid to be good, and I hope the kid is good. He seems like he's a nice kid. He really looks like he just got off the set of a Disney Channel and then came and put football helmet on. But I just don't know if he's ready yet. I really think he would have benefited sitting a whole year behind Tyrod and just learning. Some people learn better that way, and I don't want to hear the excuse that Tyrod's not that great, so he can't learn. Some of the best football teachers have been people who weren't that successful in the NFL. You're still an NFL starter. Tyrod's been to the playoffs with a team. He knows what to do. Whether he's the best at actually doing it, he still understands the game, and it would benefit him to sit behind him. So I really hope for this kid's to hit his peak. I really hope they do give the job back to Tyrod when he comes back, just because I think he's just the type of kid that really needs to sit and learn before he takes over the reins. I didn't think he was NFL ready when he was drafted. I don't think he's NFL ready now. So, not NFL ready versus one of the greatest QBs of all time. Gonna have to go with Tampa, but pretty easily in this game. So
I will say that I don't agree with that last statement. I think Herbert should play the rest of the season. A lot of times the baptism by fire works. A lot of times it doesn't work. Carson Wentz 2016 was third string behind Sam Bradford and Chase Daniels. They trade Sam Bradford, start Carson Wentz, and minus what little bump in the road he has this year, he doesn't look like a great quarterback. Herbert could use the experience. You don't get experience by sitting on the bench, though.
I do agree. It just depends on the player. That's why I said I think with a player like him, it would benefit him. So, they did wonders for Aaron Rodgers. So, Baltimore at Washington. I'll tell you what, I do not want to be the Washington football team this week. Okay, after the embarrassment that the Ravens had on Monday night, and for those of you who didn't watch the game, it looks 34-20, but if they didn't have a kickoff return for a touchdown, it's 34-13. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they got demolished by the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They are pissed off, okay, because now people are questioning if this team's even like a legit contender. Okay, I've literally read that numerous times this week. I don't believe that. I think they are. But teams don't like to hear that kind of stuff, especially teams as good as Baltimore. And I'm sure coaches like John Harbaugh don't like to hear that, okay, because he's one of the best coaches in the game. Which is also another reason why I wouldn't want to be the Washington football team this week, because he's going to make sure they make a statement this week. So, sorry. Yeah, that defensive line's really good, but Lamar Jackson is a scrambling QB, so once they hit penetration, he's going to take off. So, this is going to be a blowout. A lot of times I say Washington's defense keeps them in games, but I don't think it's going to be the case this week. I just think Baltimore's too good and too pissed off. So I got Baltimore to blow out.
Yeah, I'm in the same exact boat. And I know what you guys are thinking. We've only had like one pick so far that's totally different from each other. But it does get a little interesting a little bit. No, the Ravens, they got exposed on national television. Lamar didn't look good. I feel bad for fans of the Washington football team because you guys are going to want to turn that game off in the first quarter. It's going to get ugly. If you have any Ravens players on your team for fantasy football, start them this week. They're going to go off, especially Lamar. Lamar is going to absolutely go off because a lot of people are saying he can't be an NFL quarterback because he lost to Mahomes. Well, he's 23-1 against every other NFL quarterback that's not Patrick Mahomes. So the guy wins.
That loss was to Baker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He wins against the NFL starters that aren't Mahomes. So rest assured the Ravens are going to win this football game. Write it off now.
All right, Arizona at Carolina.
Okay. So, Arizona looked not great last week. They lost to the Lions. I know a lot of Lions fans in here happy about that win. Arizona's going to rebound this week. Arizona's going to win this football game. Kyler Murray's going to not throw 4 interceptions. He's probably going to throw 4 touchdowns. I don't think this is going to be a very competitive game. I think Arizona's good. They're embarrassed just like Baltimore was embarrassed. But maybe even a little bit more embarrassed because everybody thought Arizona was going to take that game by a landslide. I'm comfortable they're going to take this game by a landslide. The Panthers, without Christian McCaffrey, that team is not a team that's going to win too many football games. They're not going to win one this week.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Brent on the pissed off and embarrassed thing. I didn't think that Arizona was going to run away with the game against Detroit, but I definitely thought they were gonna beat them, especially since Detroit hardly ever wins in the desert. Teddy Bridgewater's looked all right for Carolina, but there comes to a point where lack of talent comes into play, and when you're facing a team like the Cardinals, when you're looking over their depth chart and all you see is talent, that's not good, especially coming off an embarrassing loss that they shouldn't have lost. Kyler had a bad game last week. He won't have another bad game like that again. I feel like games like that kind of piss off players, especially ones that have doubters like Kyler does, because people always be doubting him because he's super short. Like, why is legal midget playing in a quarterback in the NFL? So he's going to be a little irritated. So I expect them to come out and shred this Carolina defense, who hasn't looked that good in the first couple weeks of the season. They looked a little better against the Chargers last week, but again, that was part of what I went over in the last game with Herbert being a rookie that I don't think was NFL ready. So other than that, Carolina's defense hasn't looked good. So I feel really bad for them. I don't have a lot more to say about this other than Arizona's just a lot more talented. Teddy Bridgewater will do what he can, but again, lack of talent, just eventually that takes over. So Minnesota at Houston. Yeah, finally gonna take the Vikings to get their first win. I didn't pick the Vikings last week, so nobody try to say that this is a biased pick because I don't always pick them. But I think Houston's got a lot of problems over there, a lot more than Minnesota. Where Minnesota's just kind of gotten off to a slow start, but I don't think they're unconfident in themselves. Like every Vikings player that I know is still super confident in their team. They're just looking to finally gel and get that. And I think they had a confidence booster last week, playing by far their best game of the season against Tennessee. They kind of got a little unlucky at the end, but that's how football goes sometimes. A bad snap over the head of Carson Wentz. Why was Kirk Cousins? It does happen to Carson Wentz, so I was shocked. But high snap over the head of Kirk Cousins stopped their game-winning drive. Just fluky plays like that kind of kill you. I just think the Vikings have a lot more talent than the Texans do. The Texans have declined since the last couple of years with Bill O'Brien running everything over there. So they just don't look like the same Texans team. They looked competitive against the Steelers, but I feel like they've looked competitive in the first 2 quarters against every team they played, and then they just crumble. Deshaun Watson's a great quarterback, and as much as I love Kirk Cousins, I think Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. But when it comes down to overall team talent, the Vikings are just way over exceeded against in the talent level than Houston. Eventually that catches up. Kirk Cousins actually got people to throw the ball to. Deshaun Watson doesn't. He's just kind of got to pray to figure out which bum is going to take over this week. Last week was Randall Cobb.
And Will Fuller, too.
And Will Fuller, yeah. Well, Will Fuller's the only legitimate guy he's got here. Now you just have to hope Will Fuller doesn't, tear his hammy.
Like he is every game.
Right. So, I got Minnesota. Dalvin Cook looked really good last week. 200 total yards. He looked unstoppable. If they do that, Houston won't be able to keep up. Houston's defense isn't good, so I expect the Vikings to put some points up on that defense. J.J. Watt's not. I mean, at this point, he might as well retire at this point. So, he got a 98 in Madden. Garbage.
Next year he'll be a 97.
Yeah. Go ahead. That's all I got.
So this was a tough one to pick for me. What it came down to, though, is who's playing for more right now. And when you look at the Texans and the Vikings, they're both 0-3. The Vikings are in a division where there's 2 3-0 teams. Houston's playing in a division with 1 3-0 team. The AFC is so weak that I feel comfortable the Texans could still make the playoffs with this 7-seed format. Not so much with Minnesota anymore. I think that Houston has more to lose by losing this game. So I'm going to pick the Texans. I thought that they were going to beat the Steelers. They looked like they were winning that game for most of the game. And then they just crumbled at the end. They couldn't keep up with that defense. It hurts to say because I do like the Vikings. I'm not a Vikings fan, but I like to root for them. I don't think that they're going to win this football game. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have a better game than Kirk Cousins, and that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be a nail-biter, but it's not going to. I don't think it's going to go in the Vikings' favor.
Yeah, okay. Giants at Rams?
Do we got to talk about this? The Rams! So, I know the Rams didn't look great for the first half of that football game against the Bills, but who's looking good against the Bills this year? The Rams came back and almost won that football game.
That was a hell of a comeback.
Minus a very controversial call at the end of that game. We won't go too much into details with it because the Rams, you know all about controversial calls.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it, Rams fans. I don't want to hear it.
You can't.
You told Saint fans to shove it a few years ago. I don't want to hear it.
You can't be okay with your team doing something and then get pissed off that it happens to you. It just karma went full circle there. But the Rams came back and looked like they were going to win that football game. They're a good squad.
Better than I thought they'd be, for sure.
Better than the Giants.
Damn sure for that.
So, look for this game to get ugly really quick. The Giants aren't playing for anything this year. It went out the window with Saquon.
It did.
So, what they're looking to do is just finish out the season, maybe get some offensive line help, maybe something for Danny Dimes, but the Rams are going to just cakewalk their way. Like, you might see some exotic plays just because what do they have to lose from an interception? They're going to win by 30 points in this game. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah. This is pretty much gonna put it this point, like, the Rams offense has too many weapons for the Giants to keep up. Either the Giants can go out there and play their best game that they could play, and they won't be able to score enough points to keep up with the Rams' offense. Jared Goff looks revitalized from last year because last year was the time that people were finally like, is Jared Goff actually for real, or was he just a product of Sean McVay? And now that people caught up with Sean McVay's style, Jared Goff's suffering now too. Well, it looks like that last year I think was just kind of a fluke year for the Rams. Teams go through that from time to time.
Yeah.
They look good again this year. They look like the Rams of 2 years ago. I don't care if they lost to the Bills. They still look good in that football game. They started off slow. They came back, and again, I'm not going to go into it, but they were really close and just a play away from beating Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And that's saying something because I think Buffalo has proven that they're a legit team.
Yeah.
So you went into their house and almost beat them after being down 28-3. Sounds familiar. So I gotta say that this NFC West is gonna be fun to watch this year. Okay, seeing who wins this division. I wouldn't even be confident if I'm Seattle as good as you guys have looked, just because of how good the rest of the teams in your division look. So I would look forward to every matchup between these teams this year. It'll be cool, especially once San Francisco gets back to full health. It'll be fun to watch these guys all go at it. But I don't have a lot to actually add to this actual game because it'll be a massacre. Mm-hmm. 38-8 range type thing. So, just expect this game to be over early. Next game. I'm pretty pissed about this week because you had the 2 game of the weeks being played at the same freaking time. You couldn't put one of them on at one. That would be cool. But the first one is the game of the week. If I had to pick between the two. New England, Kansas City. In Kansas City, where they have fans. Everybody knows that. Okay, that's a difference maker, as everybody should know. I just wanted to point that out to everybody. Having people in the building makes a difference. I'm taking Kansas City here. I think Cam Newton's looked phenomenal. Every game he's looked phenomenal with his feet, being able to move things. He's a little hot and cold with his passing, but he's been able to make plays happen because he can run with the ball. I do think it's going to be extremely close. This game will be competitive. It'll be fun, a lot like the New England-Seattle game. But I think Kansas City in the end has too many weapons, and when it's going to come down to who can throw the ball better, and I don't think that that's a question. That's Patrick Mahomes.
You don't think it's a question?
No. Patrick Mahomes, at worst, is the second best quarterback in the league. I said that last week. At worst. You can make an argument he's number one, but at worst, you can't put him any lower than 2. Cam Newton throwing the ball is not up there. Cam Newton as an athlete is up there. But it's going to come down to keeping up with a team like this, you're going to need more than just your legs. And then that's a problem because his top receiver doesn't even have touchdown catch this year. So that poses a problem of keeping up. I think New England is going to be a real threat, winning like the lower 20 type games. But when you get up into the higher 30s is when you're going to have kind of an issue here. New England's defense still looked good, though. I was worried that they were going to take a step back. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do against Pat Mahomes, but I just can't bet against Pat Mahomes yet. Like I said before, until somebody beats them, they're my favorite in the AFC, so I'm not going to pick against them.
All right, let's talk about Cam Newton and the Patriots. So Cam Newton looks great. I think he could, if Cam could produce on this level, he could start on a lot of football teams. They have an electric rushing attack. Sony Michel looks rejuvenated. Rex Burkhead's capping off those touchdowns. Their defense is playing pretty decent. I mean, they give up a lot of yards, but they're winning football games. And Cam Newton and Bill Belichick seem like a match made in heaven. It brings back old school football. It's fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And Cam Newton's a lot of things, but one thing Cam Newton's not is Patrick Mahomes. It's very hard to look at a game on a schedule and say Patrick Mahomes is not going to win this football game. This has to be the game of the week, though. This game is going to be so fun to watch, and like everyone should watch it. It's going to be great. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Kansas City ultimately is going to pull it out. It's a battle of two great coaches, Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, probably two of the best that ever. I think Bill Belichick's best that has ever coached. But Andy Reid's right up there. Andy Reid's a great coach.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the weapons in New England are enough to match the weapons in Kansas City. And so Kansas City wins this game, but if it's not an overtime game, then it should be, because it's going to be a great game to watch. But just New England won't be able to keep up.
Yeah, I agree. Buffalo and Vegas.
So this one's actually surprisingly easy for me to pick. Yes, Vegas went out and beat New Orleans, but it was opening up their new stadium. That was like, okay, usually teams win when they open up a stadium. It was without Michael Thomas, a pretty convincing win for the Raiders. But the Bills look good. And the Rams gave them everything they were for, and the Rams are a good football team. I don't think the Raiders match up very well with Buffalo, because Henry Ruggs is not going to play in this game. He's a very, very long shot to play. Without that, he's taking the top off the defenses. So you're going to be able to put like Trey White. You could put him on Darren Waller if you wanted to. If Waller's even going to play. Waller's kind of up in the air on if he's going to play too. The Raiders have some injuries that they're dealing with. Buffalo's defense is too good for all those injuries that are on the Raiders' offense to match up with. I think the Bills are going to win this football game very convincingly.
All right, I wanted to pick the Raiders. I'm very pro John Gruden,
yes.
And I do like what he's doing with this Raiders football team. And I do think that this Raiders team's going to wind up making one of the wild card spots in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I do. But the injuries are too much to beat Buffalo right now. I'm going to agree with him. That was my reasoning why I picked Buffalo. I wanted to pick the Raiders. I did. I think at full strength they could possibly upset Buffalo.
Yeah.
But not only is Henry Ruggs not playing, Bryan Edwards is not playing. That's the number 2 receiver. So Derek Carr, who I've already said that they are a quarterback away from being a real threat in this league. So I'm already not sold on Derek Carr. And now you take away his top 2 weapons. So now you got little Hunter Renfroe being your top target out there, and mad respect to Hunter Renfroe. He makes plays happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you need more than that. Darren Wallace probably going to play. I heard that they're leaning towards he's going to play, but he's not 100%. Josh Jacobs is a little banged up. I don't think he's as bad as the other ones. So they're going to have to lean heavily on Josh Jacobs in this game, which already being hurt is detrimental to the future.
Yeah.
Because you don't want a banged up running back taking a bunch of hits, but
Against the Buffalo's run defense.
against Buffalo's defense, yeah, that's what you want. Buffalo's defense is nasty. They like to hit people. They like to get dirty. That's what they do. Okay, so I just couldn't pick the Raiders. It's just if they were healthy, I might pick them here at home if they were healthy, but I just can't. I don't trust Derek Carr. I think that they do have a shot, but they have to come out and score early because Derek Carr is not going to, especially against Buffalo's defense, is not going to bring you back from behind. He proved that against New England. They played well against New England until New England took a lead. And once New England took a more than one touchdown lead, it's like Derek Carr crumbled. He couldn't figure out what to do. So I think Vegas falls to 2-2 here, but I don't think that this is the end of their season. I think that they have a lot of wins in their future there. These are not long-term injuries for Ruggs or Edwards or Waller or Jacobs. They'll all be healthy. So stick it out. It's going to be a pretty solid season for the Raiders. They're a year or two away from being a real contender. So just keep faith. Y'all won the Khalil Mack trade. You got a lot of good pieces. So keep faith. But Buffalo's defense is too good. Josh Allen right now is too good. So I'm going to be interested in watching this game, but I just don't think there's a threat here. Philadelphia at San Francisco. This game was hard for me to pick, and I know you think if you just look at the two teams, it really wouldn't be hard to pick. But San Francisco having like every backup in their book playing makes this game hard to pick. Good news for San Francisco, George Kittle's playing. He was full go at practice today. Played 100% of practice, went through, didn't have any setbacks, nothing. He's good to go. So that's a big addition for San Francisco. That's huge. But everybody else still hurt, so it was still difficult for me to pick, although, granted, I did make my pick before I heard Kittle was back. But I just think San Francisco's proven, and I know they've only played the Giants and the Jets, but their backup squad's pretty damn good. Nick Mullins, actually, is setting NFL records for a backup. I didn't realize he was as good as he was, looking back at his statistics. So, I don't even think they're worried about Jimmy G playing. I'm telling you, Jimmy G is not that great. I know San Francisco people love him, but he's just not that good. He's good enough to win games. He's not like a trash quarterback, but he's just not what they thought they were getting. Yes, fuck the Packers. That's right. We'll get to them in a second. But I just think San Francisco's got too many weapons. McKinnon's a good dual threat running back there, and Coleman might play. So that's a positive there. That's not 100%, but even if they don't, like I said, McKinnon's good. Their defense is still good. They've played good. They've held they held the Jets to how much? What did they score last week?
Well, it wasn't the Jets last week. It was
or 2 weeks ago. What did the Jets score 2 weeks ago? 7, right? Like, okay, and the Giants didn't do much more last week. So, and I know that those guys aren't like top competitors, but it just shows that when a team can, because usually these are the teams when you get injuries, you just fall back and you play. You can still win those games, but you look bad. But San Francisco hasn't looked bad. They've blown these teams out by 20-some points, and they shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. I don't care who you're playing. Maybe the Jets, because they're the worst team I've ever seen. But you shouldn't have blown the Giants out being with some of your third stringers and second stringers out there. These are still starting NFL athletes. Philly hasn't looked that good. I want to pick Philly. I want them to pick it up. I just want to say Colin Cowherd said they're going to go on a run now. Carson Wentz had his hat on forward during the press conference last week.
That's how you know it's real.
It wasn't backwards anymore. So Colin Cowherd said he's got his head in the game, so he's ready to go. So we'll see who's smarter between me and Cowherd, but I just think San Francisco's just rolling. They know they got to win in this division. It's tough where the Eagles could lose and they could still win the division. Their division's bad. Like they could win the division with 6 wins maybe. So we'll see how it goes. I don't like it. If it was in Philly, I might think about it, but I got San Francisco here, so I know what you're going to take already, but we'll go ahead.
Going with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, No, the reason's mostly, if this was a healthy 49ers team, then absolutely not. I would not pick the Eagles to win this game. Actually, at the start of the season, I crossed this one off as a loss. But I don't think the Eagles are going to lose this football game because they know that if they win this football game at 0-2-1, if they win and the Cowboys lose, they're first place in their division. They're division leaders at 1-2-1. I don't think that that Nick Mullins is going to have success against this defensive line. I said that last week about Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow was buried at halftime. It was bad.
He didn't get lit up.
At one point, it looked like he was going to be out of the game. He got hit so hard. Kittle coming back is a huge boost for that team, for sure. But I think without the lack of other weapons on offense, because all the reports are aiming at Coleman is not playing. He hasn't practiced. And McKinnon looked really good against the Jets. But then against the Giants, he had worse than pedestrian numbers. I think he averaged less than 2 yards a carry against the Giants.
He looked good in the first half.
Yeah.
Second half, he got shut down.
And
more than shut down.
I think that the Eagles, it's not going to be a flashy game because the Eagles, their weapons aren't there. But the Eagles did just get a new tight end, Hakeem Butler, so previous wide receiver in the NFL last year. So that could be a matchup that could be a nightmare for teams if he even plays. But no, I think
interesting to see if he even does.
With the injuries mostly to the defense of 49ers, I think Miles Sanders is going to have his first 100-yard rushing game of the season. Because there's nobody up front that's going to stop him. It's going to be Fred Warner is the first one to hit him. And I think that he's going to have really good success. I think the Eagles win this football game. It's going to be ugly. It's not going to be great, but they're going to win this football game.
All right. Atlanta at Green Bay Monday night.
If there's any Falcons fans in this chat, leave.
Log out.
Go. Stop being fans of the Falcons. They suck. How many times can you guys sit there and have a comfortable lead with 4 minutes left in the game and lose? Like, I don't understand how the Falcons can be this, pardon my French, but how can they be this fucking bad? God, like, they suck. They're not good. And the Packers are good. The Packers are a good football team. I don't expect the Falcons to have a 2-possession lead with 4 minutes left because they're not going to have a lead for this entire football game. The only lead that they're going to have is if they score on their opening drive. That's it. After that, it's done because this game shouldn't even be on the NFL. Like, Falcons just don't show up on Sunday. Monday, sorry. Packers win this game by like 56.
Okay, so, I mean, it should already be obvious enough that the Packers are going to win this game. I did pick them. Not only that, but it's in Green Bay. But the Packers are first in scoring offense, and the Falcons are 32nd in scoring defense.
Oh, Julio's probably not going to play in this game.
And Julio's probably not going to play. He hasn't done anything this far this year anyway. But Calvin Ridley's gonna. The only way that they're gonna beat Green Bay is if Calvin Ridley sets the receiving yard record. Like, dead serious. Like, he's gonna have to have 300 plus for them to, because that's what they're gonna need to do to keep up with Green Bay. Because Green Bay's gonna. I will be surprised if Green Bay has a 4th down in this game.
You might see Jordan Love play in this game.
It's possible, yeah. I wouldn't be shocked, and then that might be when you guys get Green Bay's first 4th down. But but the Falcons are not. I would be shocked if Green Bay got a 4th down. That Falcons defense is bad, like bad, and Green Bay's offense is the best in the league right now as a whole. So I know Russell Wilson's playing better than Aaron Rodgers, but as a whole, Green Bay's offense has been better than Seattle's. I would not want to be Falcons fans for the rest of the year, I don't think, because they look like, I didn't think they were going to be good at all. I think I had their this website comes out where you do your picks every year throughout every week, and It tallies up everybody's records for you, so you don't have to do it. And I think I had Atlanta at 4-12. I might have over guessed on that 4-12. But I thought they were going to be like a competitive 4-12. And based on scores, you would think they are competitive. But when you melt down that much, you're not competitive.
No.
I don't care what the final score says. There's more to a game than the final score. You got to remember that. Okay, like if you lose 20-point leads with 6 minutes to go, you're just not a competitive football team.
No.
Yeah, sorry to say it, but you're not. You should not lose games like that, especially 2 weeks in a row. So I want to point the stat out for you guys before we end the podcast here. No team in NFL history has ever given up 2 15-plus point leads in the fourth quarter in NFL history in the same season. Falcons just did it in back-to-back weeks. Yikes. Yikes! Like, that's not the side of history you want to be on. It's only week 4. Like, hey, come on now. Which makes me sad because the season's like a quarter of the way over. But